Oh, so we will be on the air.
Yes, we are live.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. So yeah, this will be live, but then I hit record and we do it as a podcast as well. So we may have some great, we usually get great questions from the audience too. So hey guys, everybody in DLive world, how are you? And YouTube. Let me make sure we are on YouTube. We're actually going to be on Facebook as well and Instacrime today. So on all the corporatist platforms, because we're going to use their own systems against them. That's what we do. So, but eventually we will be getting off these platforms completely as the world shifts to decentralization. But yes, we are on. So what I'm going to do is fire up the podcast. I'm going to hit record and we're going to get going with Elana Freeland today. This is an exciting podcast. I've been looking forward to this one. So I'll hit record and let's do it. And boom, we're back for another episode of AlphaCast. I'm Mike Winter, and I'm here as always with Dr. Bear Paul Orlando up on the beautiful Smith River in the great state of Jefferson, where we are, it feels like we're already in winter. I guess technically winter hasn't hit yet, but it seems like winter's here with the grand solar minimum kicking in. Fall seems to be disappearing, and we're going from summer to winter, but that's the way it is. And we're loving life here. We're about to get a lot of rain. And wow, we're already in December, Bear. It's just been quite a year of growth for Alfa Vedic. I know this has been a tumultuous year for many. For us, we've been riding the wave and have just been so appreciative of the growth that we've had in our community. And we say thank you to all of you guys who are supporting us on Telegram, on Discord, watching the show, joining us live on our AlphaCasts, buying our products. You guys have just really been amazing, and we're so grateful for all of you joining us on this amazing adventure this year. It's really been quite a year for us, and thank you so much. We have just an amazing growth in our co-op as well. If you guys are interested in joining us in a more intimate way and getting involved with Alfa Vedic, we have our executive co-op, which is really just expanded rapidly. We just had another executive co-op meeting on Monday. It was fantastic. People we're coming together, we're collaborating, we're creating community, we're developing bartering tactics and techniques and figuring out ways to help each other. People are interested in becoming practitioners themselves and learning how to heal themselves and their neighbors and through community outreach. And it's just been an amazing experiment so far, and we're just couldn't be more thrilled. So if you are interested in finding out more about this, you can join us on Telegram at t.me/Alfa Vedic. That's a great way to kind of dive in. It is a pretty intensive room, so if that's a little too much for you, you of course can check us on traditional social media, which we're slowly getting off of. Facebook, Instagram, etc. We're also on Discord, which is a more of a kind of a forum aspect to it. So it's people really enjoy that too. And that's alphavedic.com/Discord. And then, of course, on Patreon at patreon.com/Alfa Vedic. That's a great way to not only support us, but join the co-op. You get discounts on the products. You get exclusive content. We try to throw in free books every week. We try to, we're going to be developing more content on the farm, giving you guys practical ways to grow your own food, grow your own medicine, and really become soil farmers and getting your soil optimum so that you guys can really be setting yourself apart from even those farmers by you that are, are growing amazing food. We're going to give you the ability to go to the next level. And it's really exciting. So patreon.com/Alfa Vedic. And of course, you can buy our amazing products. I'm wearing our Electric Universe hat today, which is an exclusive. This is a limited edition, but we've got a few different hats. We've got an amazing cut and sew T-shirt that Bryden Lando, Bear's son and co-founder of Alfa Vedic, is putting together. We're going to have a whole merch line coming out in 2021 with really cutting edge, really cool stuff. You can be a walking signpost for us by wearing our stuff. So it's really fun. We're having a lot of fun with this, Bear. Speaking of fun, today's going to be a really fun talk with our guest, Elana Freeland here, author of the amazing book, Under an Ionized Sky. I've got it right here. And it's actually, she's written a number of books, but this one is just fantastic. And it's actually, you can get it at on our book list at alfavedic.com/book list. So support Elana and us by going and purchasing it there. And let's get into it. Elana Freeland is a writer, ghostwriter, lecturer, storyteller, and teacher who researches and writes on deep state issues, including the stories of survivors of MK Ultra, ritual abuse, and invasive electromagnetic weapons. She is now perhaps best known for her book, Sub Rosa America, Chemtrails HARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth, and the sequel, which I just showed you, Under an Ionized Sky, From Chemtrails to Space Fence Lockdown, about the resurrection of the Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI, or the Star Wars Space Fence, as we know from the Reagan years. In Elana's own words, I came of age in the eyes of the 60s maelstrom. Like others of my generation, I didn't know what I was witnessing, but I do know now. I am one of many Americans still haunted by the unresolved public murder in Dallas that led to the criminal downfall of the nation. Sub Rosa America is the deep state history behind President Kennedy's assassination and descent of the United States into corporate fascism. In my early 20s, I discovered Chinese medicine and macrobiotics. At 25, I experienced a full-on mind-blowing vision of the etheric Christ during a college class, after which I was nominated for a Danforth Fellowship. 3 suits flew all the way from Washington, D.C. to question me about my etheric Christ experience, which is pretty wild. In the middle of my Saturn return, I discovered the works of 20th century Christian initiate Rudolf Steiner, which of course we talk about pretty much weekly on AlphaCast, and began learning how to think with my etheric heart instead of just my intellect. To this day, I still follow these 3 paths of wisdom. Wow. That is a lot right there. Bear Lando, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Michael. Really excited about our chat today. And yeah, to the folks out there, as most of humanity is waiting for the other shoe to drop, here at the farm and in our little group, we're in 100% creative overdrive. And it's a perfect anecdote for all the fear and, the false narratives going on. So I feel really blessed to be part of this group and live in such a beautiful place. And I'd encourage everybody to tap into your creativity because, that's the name of the game is, certain folks trying to prevent us from going there. Elana, thank you so much for being here today and great chat. There's so many things I'd like to talk to you about.
Yeah.
When I go to in your website, especially the Sub Rosa, I feel like I'm going into archives of an old library, and I just love it. I love the whole resonance you've created with your site, and the information is phenomenal. I have my copy of your book here, which I absolutely love. So I'd encourage everybody to go there. You won't be disappointed. Elana, we have a very educated audience and they understand, that, we are getting sprayed like bugs. There is a such thing as electrosmog. Everybody's very well aware of the effects on our biology. We're under a full kitchen sink assault right now. But, what really disturbs me more, what I'm more concerned about, I should say, is the effect it has on our subtle anatomy. I spent many years and still do measure the subtle energies. They're not subtle at all, but we think of them as subtle. That is just as important as our biology. And then the subtle layers also serve as compartments, and they're there for a reason, just like compartments of the body. You don't want the lower bowel leaking into the peritoneum and, creating problems. And also we don't want contamination of, certain lower astral levels contaminating, our finer, spiritual levels, we'll say. And so where I'm going with this is what's happening now in our atmosphere is creating an abundance of very noxious, as you know better than I do, waveforms that are very penetrating, and in the field of biogeometry, we call them vertical waves. and they have not only a penetrating quality that's not good for our biology, but they also act as carrier waves. And those carrier waves bring with them informational fields. And through those informational fields, I think it's beyond speculation that at certain levels, the folks that are behind all this nonsense are using those to carry the information they want into our psyche to create, their social engineering. And also it contaminates us or exposes us to the psychic realm, which is like the collective human landfill on the emotional level. And, and we're getting all that contamination at the same time. So, I know we have a lot to talk about, but if we could maybe get some of your thoughts on what I just said as well, because I think it's an area that isn't often addressed as we're talking about chemtrailing and EMG and such. So thanks again for being here, and we'll just take this wherever you'd like to go.
Thank you. That was good to bring that up, because I know that I'm now finishing. I feel like I'm using the word finishing too long. Finishing the third book on geoengineering. And that book is entitled Geoengineered Transhumanism: How the Environment Has Been Weaponized by Chemicals, Electromagnetics, and Nanoparticles for Synthetic Biology. And I mean, it's a mouthful, but it's all connected. And when I started 10 years ago, a little over, getting involved in the chemtrails movement, as it was called then, and it was almost entirely an internet movement. A lot of us who are so-called leaders of this movement haven't even met in the flesh, but we've met many times through emails, videos, etc. And we've all been sort of on the same page. At the beginning, I was on the same page they were. I was paying attention to the sky and, brushing up my chemistry. I had a biology major in undergrad years ago. And I slowly over time, I went all the way from my friendship with Clifford Carnicom, who was the only independent scientist at that time, working on what was coming out of the backs of jets. And Clifford was living in northern New Mexico in the beautiful azure skies that they used to have. And he was collecting data from condensation and from his HEPA filter, and discovered these fibers that were obviously in these trails. And I became involved through, again, a serendipitous destiny move of someone introducing me to him because she knew I liked science and he liked science. And then we got very involved in looking through the microscopes, and we did the red wine test to see about the fibers in our mouths. And we collected as much as we could from people on a very low key scale. And when I saw the fiber out of my own mouth move in the water under its own motility, I definitely got the picture of the crucial nature of this, that it wasn't a matter of a few people having something. It was a matter of a completely geoengineered planetary event. And then I found out that it was daily. Then I followed Clifford's research. He had a bunch of papers up. He was getting hit every week by over 180 alphabet soup agencies who were all very interested in finding out what he could find out on his own with his shoestring budget compared to their multi-million-dollar setups. So that was the beginning for me. And then when Adam Parfrey at Feral House, I'd done some work for him when I was living in England, and he asked if I thought I could write a book on chemtrails, and that was how I started. But I didn't know then that there would be layer upon layer upon layer to geoengineering. And I didn't even have the term geoengineering at that time. But I began to, over time, first I wrote Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth. That was in 2014. Then another couple of years and working with someone who had contacted me after that book came out, Billy Hayes, the very famous HAARP man. He had worked on the HAARP team to build the antenna arrays up in Gakona, Alaska. HAARP meaning High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, an ionospheric heater, basically. And Billy was invaluable to me in pointing me in this direction, in that direction, in this direction, in that direction, to lead me back to the SDI program of the Reagan, George H.W. Bush, and Dick Cheney Troika, I call it, back in the 80s. And the SDI was, we called it the Star Wars program because it was a lot like the movies, but they couldn't quite make the jump to light speed yet because they hadn't prepared the atmosphere. And so with the chemical trails and the jets flying every day, not just military jets, might have started there, but it went quickly to the commercial jets under Project Cloverleaf, where they all signed NDAs not to discuss this top secret classified program. And it was, for a couple, 3 years, as I recall, we who were in the sort of cutting edge, leading edge of the internet movement were arguing about whether it was just in the fuel or if it was a supplementary system. What was, where were these fibers coming from? And it was, many egos were bruised, and we confronted this, that, and the other. And finally, I figured that out, and I detail that in this second book so that people can understand how that is done. So then the next phase was, okay, so we're getting, the space fence is enclosing us in this electromagnetic chemical soup. And then I discovered the nanoparticles. And the nanoparticles now have taken front and center for me because I've found definite patents, papers, conferences, military conferences, NASA conferences about the use of nanoparticles. And not just in cosmetics and toothpaste and any food, refined food that needs thickening. And, it's in everything. It's in new cars. That smell you get in the new cars, that's nanoparticles. It's ubiquitous. But that it was in biology and that they were very, very interested. And of course, that was bingo on the Morgellons that Clifford had spent 20 years on. And then I realized that Morgellons was a nanoparticle and that it had been weaponized as a pathogen. And then I realized that virus, which of course Rudolf Steiner, my other great teacher, assured me, and others, of course, he's dead. I like my guru's dead, I always say. He told me that the virus doesn't really exist. It sort of occurs in the cell when a nanoparticle is suddenly, in a way, weaponized by the fact that our immune system is weakened and is not really doing its job very well. So, it all sort of just came together all the way from the beginning when I thought it was just up there and coming down here, and to where now it's in our bodies. It's we are daily, I assume, they're still dropping trillions of nanoparticles in the stratosphere above us, and that those nanoparticles are all different specializations. Of course, Big Pharma got involved right away, and Big Pharma is a chemical company. Come on, it's a chemical phalanx, I would call it, of all the way back to IG Farben and the Nazis. It's much more than it seems. Just about every agency in the US government is much more than it seems. So then now I'm on the next book, where I'm going into where the second one was going into the details of how the Space Fence SDI program has now captured us in a prison, turned the planet into a prison planet. And the 5G and 6G being just another layer of this, a very important layer, I might add, because those, especially the 6G, but 5G as well. 5G is sort of the matrix for 6. And this will now give them the power over the interior of our bodies, including the DNA. So that's kind of the picture of geoengineering that I keep trying to correct. Everybody thinks it's about weather. And a lot of our leading edge have concentrated on the weather, and I'm not faulting them at all. That needs to be concentrated on. But there is so much more to it. Electromagnetic experimentation going on, all the different terraforming going on, not by aliens, but by alien human beings who are, using California fires with lots of nanotech in those fires. You just have to return to your senses and your perceptions rather than wait for the experts. That's kind of what's happened to us through this media-driven culture that we live in. Is they've driven us to doubt our own perceptions, doubt our own common sense, and to go to wait for the experts to come forward. Well, as you and I both know, the experts have not come forward. They have hidden behind calling anyone who questions anything a conspiracy theorist, et cetera, the usual CIA litany of assaults. So we're on our own. And for me, that's good news, because I've kind of always been an individualist since I was a very small Romanian girl, living in an Eastern European community in Detroit, Michigan. I was an only child and have just sort of had a very active intellect, and have been exceedingly interested in where I landed and figuring out what's really going on here. So, I always invite people, this is the good side of this chemical trails and all this stuff pouring down on us, and we're breathing it in, and it's going into our blood system, it's going into our organs, our tissues are going easily through the blood-brain barrier. All of this is the dark side's plan to transhumanize us, to make cyborgs out of human 1.0. And create this other that they can then rule and manipulate, and so they can defeat this free will nonsense. But really, the good part of this is, as you can see all around you, wake up time to wake up, time to get going here, because we're really pressed to the wall now. And it seems to be the only way that many people wake up is through a cataclysm, catastrophe, some sort of terrible, painful war or something. People often ask, why can't life just be peaceful? Well, let me tell you, because everybody sleeps. Everybody sleeps. And you are definitely becoming a true adult and maturing when you don't need that anymore in your life. You are awake, and you are just doing it one foot in front of the other every day. And it is the creative life. It is the real life. And everybody else is sort of just just coming along at their own fumbling pace. So for me, the more I learn about this stuff, I mean, yeah, there's some sad parts to this, of a lot of suffering that comes, particularly for children, I'm sorry to say. Welcome to the planet. We're going to shoot you with as many vaccinations as we can get into you for as many years as we can talk people into putting up with it. So now it appears that, I couldn't believe when this whole thing happened almost a year ago, this lockdown and the COVID-19. It was like it was tailor-made for me with the book I'm writing. It was like, wow, this is perfectly timed, it appears, because those are the very things I'm going into to point in the direction of how the environment has been manipulated to be able to, in a way, do epigenetics on us as we speak. It's really amazing, and that everyone slept through it while they did it. We watched the geoengineering happening in the skies. We saw this crap coming down. We saw the Morgellon sores. We saw the degeneration of people's immune systems in various so-called diseases, which are really symptoms. And we analyzed soil, and soil was just depleted and turning alkaline, and the oceans were turning acid. And it was happening all around us this whole time, but nobody knew that it was one thing going on. Nobody understood that the geoengineering was about a lot more than just controlling the weather. It was about full spectrum dominance. And that was the title of the first book, The Doctrine of Full Spectrum Dominance under the Secret Space Program that Catherine Austin Fitts has talked about for years. So I think people are now, the good thing for me is with all this, whether you're on this side or that side and you believe, the T word becomes, ooh, all of this begins to reveal this elite ability, unlike the people, to concentrate for years on one objective and to draw all their resources through blackmail. There is nothing they won't do to achieve their goal. And meanwhile, we get distracted, we the people get distracted by this and that, because we're here to live a life. We're not just here to dominate a planet. So, it's a very different construct of what we're facing. And it has taken us a while to figure out how best to meet this, to face it, to put all the pieces together that, like, Osiris' body in the famous Freemason Egyptian myth of Isis and Osiris, where Osiris' body ends up all over the Nile Delta, and she's running around picking up little pieces. That's kind of what we've been faced with in our process of initiation to the 21st century. We've had to learn to run around and pick up little pieces and go, hey, wait a minute, this looks like it might have to do with this. Yes, it does. So that's been my life for quite a few years now, of just putting pieces together. And if the book is, I just received an email yesterday from this wonderful Serbian journalist who several months ago informed me that Under an Ionized Sky is a text in the Technological University in Serbia for looking at how Tesla's technology has been weaponized. And now I get an email that the former president of a corporation is using the book as proof that NATO cannot be trusted, and pointing back to their history of being doused with chemicals early on. And I had that in the book. And so, and I'm so thrilled they translated it into Serbian or Cerulean alphabet and everything. And it's the one place in the world where Tesla was from, I have to say. I'm sure Tesla is behind this, that understands why that book is important. Because here we are in the West, where nobody reads anymore, nobody can concentrate, nobody can, but Elana, there's so many footnotes. You don't have to read every footnote. That's there for the people that want to go deeper.
Well, your footnotes are great, though, because they're not just a regular footnote. You do put a lot of context in your footnotes, I've noticed.
Yes.
And someone who's a deep researcher myself, I'm reading the book and I'm only like 80 pages in, and normally I'm like scanning through stuff, but it's just so much depth of input and knowledge, which is so important with this topic, because there's so many naysayers out there that just can't wrap their heads around this still to this day. And that's what I was telling Bear before we started the show. What's so important with this show is we want to set this finally, like, to all the normies out there, listen, we love you. And we got to get over the idea that these don't exist. Okay. Chemtrails exist. Project Cloverleaf's real. This has been compartmentalized for decades. The secret space program exists. As you mentioned, Catherine Austin Fitts has been brilliant at showing how the money has been hidden and where it's gone. Trillions of dollars. Imagine what can be done with trillions of dollars. That's why we look up and see this program going. So this book, Under an Ionized Sky, and the one before, which I haven't read, but looking from this, I assume it's the same style, is just so rich in documentation. You're not just writing a novel here or a nonfiction piece. This is a very, very specific piece of scientific literature, I would say. So props to you, Elana, because it is something that I think everybody should own. And I love the footnotes. So thanks for that. And in the chat here, people are saying, and here's a question I think is a great one for people to wrap their heads around. And maybe you can give a little insight to this. And I have my theories. These people who are involved with these projects, and we'll get into the compartmentalization and just the rule followers, the order followers later, but the people at the top that are behind, that are on top of a lot of these secret space program, dark ops, military projects, the many who are very lost in their own intellectual space and not seeing the holistic, aspects of this. How are they not concerned about having the fallout, the Morgellons, all this stuff themselves? I know as Alpha Vedic, we provide tools and stuff to protect ourselves against this for our own biology. But what is their thinking on that? Is there terraforming and destroying the planet and everything? Are they just so ideological about it that, and maybe this might play into Steiner and the Eighth Sphere and Ahriman and all this stuff, and maybe they are just completely captured by that entity itself?
Or are they?
Or are they robots that don't have to worry about it? I mean, what is their idea? Because they're on this planet too. And that's been one of the big kind of counter arguments that I always face with this topic.
Oh, well, if you're talking about the very, very top, I don't know if you've ever known anyone from elite families. I mean, mega rich elite families.
Bear has, and I kind of have, yeah.
They're not raised the same way we are. Not at all. Their children don't watch TV. Their children don't take vaccinations. They are prepared from birth, in my opinion, by pain and trauma. And they are raped as children. They are abused. They are present at rituals to absolutely traumatize the soul. And then they're rebuilt. They're rebuilt to serve what the elite bloodlines want for this planet. And, I was listening to a David Icke's latest. I used to be a big critic of David Icke because I saw that he was being used as a gatekeeper for the blue collar middle laborers of England. He's come a long way. Well, I assume I've come a long way too. And he was talking about how this is all set up. And it answers your question. My first answer that I had several years ago was, and it's true, they have the antidotes. All the way from, they have the best filters, the best hepatitis filters in their homes. As you know, many of them have built underground. They have the best food, the best of everything. And even that machine that we saw in that pre-programming film Elysium, they have one of those too, one of those incubating, fix your bloodstream type of Rife, maybe a Rife machine, whatever. They have these things because they can afford them easily. So that keeps them going. But as far as their intent, I think that we have to understand that they don't take life passively like most people do. Most people feel that their destiny is sort of meted out to them, and they learn to take a very passive role in what they can achieve for themselves, or what they how they look at themselves, etc. And these elites, if we're talking about the very top, they don't do that. They have things set up for them before they're ever born. And then they get into the saddle and they keep going. And if they don't, they end up like that poor, I think it was Michael Rothschild in that Paris hotel, strangled in his bathtub. So it's a pretty hard road they lead. And yet when you get down to it, they are committed. And their life, for a lot of them at the very top, their life is just a small thing, because they're part of a much larger thing, and they know that. Whereas most people, where individualism is just barely getting going and pulling us out of the group soul and collective, and now we are confronted by the Bill Gates of the world, who want to put us back into the hive mind and turn us all into nanoparticle run entities. We tend to get distracted and, oh, wow, I never knew about this. And, that's the trouble with incarnations, is you come back and you get hit with your time and the themes of your time. And now you got to start dancing right away, and got to figure out what's good for you and what's not. And it's it's understandable that we're distracted. They are in an army of elitism, and it's not a pretty sight. I don't envy them in any way, shape, or form, but we must understand them so that we can understand the enemy, much as George Patton used to study the Gallic Wars of Caesar in order to prepare to fight Rommel on the field of battle in northern Africa. So that's what goes with being a warrior, and I'm a warrior, and you guys obviously and Jefferson are warriors. So that's kind of how I see it. If that's the argument people are using to not believe this is going on, they would be harmed too. They would have to breathe this air too. They would have to drink this water too. Well, yeah, but not really. They'll have their ways. They have the best. They have the very, very best.
And in our circles, we do work with technologies that can greatly not just mitigate, but neutralize the things that they are doing. And, what you're describing, I'm very familiar with it. It's, I would call it, as far as the way they program their children, the next generation to carry on, because these are very patient, long-sighted people. It's sort of an inverted spiritual alchemy. Normal spagyric alchemy is you pick the components apart, you put them through a purification, and you reunite them into an elevated whole once again. And they use the same principles, only they, download different kinds of programming in it, so that when they put the pieces back together, you literally have a robot, somebody that's going to carry on the agenda. So unfortunately, things like alchemy and that sort of thing have gotten a bad connotation. And we have to realize that all they've done is taken truth and real science and inverted and then occulted, of course, the good parts, so that the regular folks can't ever, get a hold of it anyway. So it's what you're describing as a very scientific methodology, and it works. And I've actually run into a couple of these characters that were rescued and kind of got their lives back, and kind of defragmented their personalities. So that's definitely what we're up against, and it's difficult for the average person to understand that they're wired differently.
Well, let me bring in one more level, because there is one more level, and that's why I mentioned the David Icke interview yesterday that I was listening to carefully, because he analyzed it fantastically. And that is, with my years of Rudolf Steiner, I know that there are entities on this planet. I don't have to import them from Alpha Centauri. They are not necessarily, yes, they are alien to humanity. They are not human lovers by any means. Rudolf Steiner once said an amazing thing, and it's strengthened me so much. He said that humanity is the religion of the gods. And what he meant by that is we are the only creature, the only spiritual being who enters a material body and lives a material life, much like Madonna sang about in the 80s. We live this material life to develop free will. And most of the spiritual entities do the will of God, if you will, out of their own nature. We are a species that has to strive for our true nature. It is not a given for us. We are faced with many tests and challenges and pain and suffering. There are things that we go through here in this material world that we all dearly love, but it's not easy here. So that's why we're the religion of the gods. All right, so we're the religion of the gods. Then we have some human beings who, through perhaps the torture that they underwent as elite children, lose some portion of their humanity. And now there's a gap. There's a real big hole in there. And as we know, nature abhors a vacuum. And so something enters. And David Lynch's second round of Twin Peaks, which I've now seen 3 times, by the way. I love David Lynch. He has this amazing scene of the desert in the 40s and 50s, where these creatures enter an innocent girl. Because we don't know about them. We don't, most people in America are materialists. They've been conditioned and brainwashed to be materialists. They don't have any inner life. They'd rather watch TV. And that is a vacuum, and something will come to fill it. And you don't get to decide what it is that will fill it. That's the problem, is certainly in the elites. Are we dealing with real human beings anymore? Or are we already looking at human 2.0? You see the problem? That 2.0 may not just be plugged into AI and be cyborg. It may have something else going on, which John Lamb Lash, a previous teacher of mine, John says it's the archons. Mm-hmm. And we don't know much about those realms, because here on planet Earth, we need all of our forces to be directed at survival first, and then figuring out the questions of existence, et cetera, et cetera. We don't spend a lot of time on that. And so I believe that that's yet another level that we have to consider when we're talking about how these elites survive in a world that they have made inimical to human health and human mental health.
And maybe that's why they're terraforming it.
Yes, and that's part of the terraforming, for sure. When we're looking at decisions like by George Soros, et cetera, who's a lower minion, he's not one of the top, we have to consider that we might be dealing with, as Paul says in the New Testament, powers and principalities as well. Not just a human being, not just a greedy bastard. We have to realize that with our electromagnetic spectrum, and that's what David goes into so well, and I talk about it all the time. You look at the electromagnetic spectrum and look at our visual, look at what we can perceive, this teeny little area. That's all we can see. That's all we can perceive. Why would the divine world make it that way and give us not enough for all the way to the gamma rays and the radio waves and the microwaves? Well, that's been our condition up until now, where we've needed all our skills to unlock our perceptions and to have this fantastic experience, soul experience, of perceiving the real world, the beautiful nature. There are reasons that we have not been allowed into these are all sort of noli me tangere places. You're not supposed to go there, not supposed to touch those things. There's a reason, but now the elites have pushed the envelope to the point where now we have to look. And that was one of the big things Rudolf Steiner said as well. He said, what we will have to do in the 21st century is we will have to encounter evil and name it. And he didn't mean give it any old name we wanted. He meant out of its very nature to really name it. Now, the word Satan has been around for many years, and there's other Ahriman, et cetera. But this means to really look at it and use that perception that we have that no AI is ever going to have. Never. Because we have skills that AI can't touch if we are real human beings. But if we sell our humanity and we let it just sort of drift away like, it's just a matter of being a body, well, there you go.
Yeah.
And that's where our DNA comes in, back to your initial remarks and how important the DNA is. And of course, they telegraph exactly what they're up to when they're desperately trying to change the human genome with, injecting us with foreign DNA and everything. What people, I think, have to understand is every strand of DNA operates as a dual impedance antenna that's constantly resonating and keeping a homeostatic balance with our external environment. So now with the tampering of our environment and the atmosphere, of course, what is our DNA pinging into, as opposed to the original patterns that used to be there? All these overlays are what we're tapping into. And then, of course, it will be, a complete system when they have changed our DNA as well. And perhaps it's not a good idea to put insect and animal DNA into us. It is not capable of perceiving into those greater bandwidths in the first place.
And what is it doing to have aborted fetuses in the vaccinations going into babies?
Exactly.
I mean, really, really look at that. Is this one of Steiner's warnings of looking at evil? Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
it's the disassociation from the etheric body, from our source, from, we had Tom Campbell on last week, and he's an avid out of body explorer. And that's part of our analog connection to spirit, to Gaia, to the entire nature. And this is the mechanistic, transhumanistic, robotic, digital versus the organic, natural realm that we integrate with as soon as we come back onto this planet, into this sphere. And that's the war. It's the eighth sphere. It's what Rudolf Steiner warned about, which is going into a completely fake digital realm, which is where they're pushing, because, and there's so many great historic, religious traditions that talk about the fall of these elites that got disconnected from their etheric body, from their ability to touch source. Yeah. And so they are in their own way reincarnating on this in their own cycle, and they are off the wheel, or they're stuck on their own wheel, where we can transcend, we can vibrate up in whatever you want to call it, if it's terms of harmonics or other elevated transcendence or whatever. We have that ability to do that, and that's what makes us so powerful, where they can't. It's like this, like deal with Lucifer or whatever, tradition you want to go with. And that's the war we're seeing. And I feel like it's all coming to a head right now. We decided to come into this realm right now because we're warriors and we want to be here. And that's what's so exciting about it, is because what do you know? It's all coalescing right now, December 21st, the Great Conjunction, going into this new era, this new epoch, going into the air, finally into the age of Aquarius, right? So we are here at the cusp of the great change, and it's all happening. And right when COVID hit, I was like, oh, that's right on target. That seems to make sense. Bear and I were like, yep, we've been talking about this for a decade. We knew this was coming. And so anyways, back to the whole chemtrail thing, it's, for me, it's just wild because it's beyond the the whole thing about global warming and using that as a cover to pollute and make weapon systems and all that. But the AI transhumanistic agenda seems to me to be the darkest one, because that's creating the overlay for the new kind of technocratic robotic realm, right, where we are completely stuck in this eighth sphere that Rudolf Steiner talks about, or in this kind of like AI controlled virtual reality that disconnects us from our ability to touch, tap into source, reincarnate, and transcend. So that for me seems to be the most important aspect of this war right now.
Yes, and I would just stress that the human being, a lot of people hate humanity and have fallen prey to these vacuum tenants. Sadly, they don't understand that we are connected to our Mother Earth like this. And when she is attacked, we are attacked. And when we are attacked, she is attacked. That's how close it is. That's why we've had for thousands, tens of thousands, millions of years, these wonderful daily rituals with the earth of growing our food and tending our children and tending animals. And this was all the ritual of caring for the earth and the earth caring for us. And so now we have an enemy, she and we both have the same enemy. And if you look at just the structure of it, without looking at the spiritual antecedents of it, I mean, the corporation is a travesty. Because, the small corporation is one thing, where you have a single ownership or an LLC or something. But these giant corporations, these are what a wonderful Italian Steiner person, when I was living in London, gave me this great term I had not had. And it's an esoteric term, egregore, the term egregore. Yep.
Yeah.
And these corporations are like big pharma is the best one. They're just big, giant spiritual entities now, composed not of anything from the divine world particularly, but from the will of the people that have been eaten by that corporation. And that includes the people who go to them, like hospitals. The hospitals they're egregores. They eat people, and the people who go there and still kowtow to the system, it just makes the egregore greater and bigger and more powerful. So to me, that's one of our major problems. If we're looking systemically at the United States or any country, but I can speak for this one pretty well, got a big problem there because these egregores have devoured the government. There is no government anymore. It's all big bucks everywhere. And then without the knowledge, because everybody's materialistic, without the knowledge of the egregore, how can you possibly fight it? How can you possibly, well, you could begin by pulling your resources back. You don't go to these things anymore. You don't give them your dollars. You find your own way. And even if it means that you eat less, you leave them to die of atrophy. One can hope that that could happen. But
well, the ironic thing is, though, Elana, you're going to eat better because if you grow your own food and you network and stuff, you're going to eat, because food's Frankenfood now. Anyway, sorry to interrupt, but that's, it's empowering. This is all empowering.
You're back to the earth. I mean, it's just that you've gone back to the earth, and that's the key. That's the key. Is we are not evolved to the point where we can do without Mother Nature. No, we're not. And when we are, Steiner says, in the Jupiter period, when the Jupiter period comes thousands of years down the road, though a lot of things he said were far down the road have now come early. That is Ahriman's nature, of course. But anyway, so the Jupiter period, the period when he says, you will not be able to sleep at night because if you know someone is in pain. Now, that's a pretty far cry from where we are now. When that period comes, the earth and the humanity that is connected to it, we will go. But we're far from that. And we must conserve what is our connection with the earth through this. And of course, when I saw the chemical trails, that was one of my very first thoughts, being a Steiner person, was, wow, this is a full assault on the etheric body of the planet, and therefore our etheric bodies. And that, I'm sure they know what they're doing. This is not accidental. This is not the big boys with toys who, oh dear, we goofed. No, this is extremely intentional. And it's a play for being gods on the earth. We all know that. That goes with the psychopathy that they are all now suffering from. That now that many of the top dogs are completely possessed, would be the word I would have to use.
We know history repeats itself. So how much of this is overlays repeating from past civilizations such as Atlantis, and how many of the same characters are back in uniform doing the same thing over again? I know you delve into that as well.
Yeah, I can't go back that far. I sort of stick with the period of history that that's my watch. It's like the Sub Rosa America series. I do talk a little bit about Atlantis and things. And of course, there are things left, a big trail behind us, right? Wherever we go. We're like Pigpen in the
Peanuts.
Schultz cartoon. Yeah, there's a cloud of dust coming with us of our past karma. And certainly I have had some of that on a personal scale, I happen to know, that I've had to grapple with and transform to do what I'm doing now. So yes, but my responsibility is not, is like when people talk to me about aliens and things, I just can't, I know these things exist. I'm not sure about the take on it now because the CIA has so abused its privileges along those lines, and making stuff up and abducting people and, you know, and making it sound like it's aliens. And so I don't know. That's not my jurisdiction. But my jurisdiction is back to the Kennedy assassination, because I'm sure you've heard me say in an interview, I had tea with Kennedy in the Rose Garden when I was 15 years old. And he was a giant. I mean, I could, you know, I was sensitive to, in a way, who he really was, in the sense of past lives, etc. So I knew I was with a giant. And then when he was killed 3 or 4 months later, I had to go back and give talks to the civic groups that had paid for my trip to Washington, in Girls Nation, which is where I encountered him. I was in Girls Nation. Bill Clinton that summer was in Boys Nation. We were both there with Kennedy in the Rose Garden. I didn't know him. He didn't know me. We never knew each other. But that's my period. So that's how Sub Rosa goes from that period to, and then I weave in the future, coming to talk to these young people, going to Dallas to see where Kennedy was shot. You know, I weave in what I already know about where we are. The irony of that, as long as I'm on it, is that I had that dream about 2019. And that I actually started out the whole 4-book series in 2019 because of that dream. There were the numerals 2019 were about 4 stories high in front of me on a dark night in the dream, and they were on fire. And now here we are. I mean, you know, it's just unbelievable that.
And when did you have that dream?
1993. So we're right on schedule, according to Sub Rosa. Sometimes I have had the little paranoid thought that they're following my following my book's chronology, but no, they're not doing that. So can it be that I can't deal with the ancient past, but I know the karma of having left a sitting president, murdered in the street, shot down like a dog, and not one person has served a day in jail over that. That was a big mistake.
I was just going to say, younger generations that weren't alive at that time, I don't think they can fully appreciate how impactful that was to us that were there. And even at that young age myself, I just innately knew that this was the beginning of something. And it was just, it really touched all of us very, very deeply. And it was a huge event.
Well, it was huge because it was ritualized. We didn't know that then, but it was ritualized. And that's what I've pointed out in Sub Rosa, but also James Shelby Downard. And, you know, I've talked about him on the air before, of this amazing guy who gave us the insight into what Freemasonry in America really is. It's a criminal gang, is what it is, at every degree. And to have seen three of our heroes of the largest generation in history, the 60s generation, each one, bam, bam, bam. John Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, shot down, done. All of them by the American gun, and none of them by the people blamed for their deaths. So you had this huge assault on the largest generation in history. It just crippled my generation. That's when the drugs really took off, and all the street action, and COINTELPRO, all of it just big time took off. Now that was that's the death of the three kings, I call it. They were all ritual. John Kennedy, 11/22, November 11th. Martin Luther King, April 4th, 4/4. Robert Kennedy, June 6th, 6/6. Come on, wake up. Don't you see the numbers? Don't you see what they're telling us? And I was even telling a high school class about it once. I didn't teach there very long because they didn't want anyone telling the truth. But and a girl at the back, I said, I said, I don't know what 8/8 was. What was 8/8? Or was there an 8/8? There must have been 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? And she raised her hand and she said, Miss Freeland, that was Watergate. Yeah, it was Watergate. And, it was like, you didn't kill that president, you just let him walk, right? So if we can possibly, as Erich Fromm, the great psychoanalyst, said, learn this symbolic language to some degree and understand when it's being used against us, because it's being used against us all the time, like COVID-19. Do you think that's by accident? These are all, the symbolic language leads us into the spiritual side of things, almost painlessly. And they use it all the time against us through our symbols, through the symbols they teach us. Why can't we pay more attention to how the symbols are being used subconsciously against us? And wake up there as well. That's my hope.
Yeah, dark magic.
Yeah, they use lesser black magic all the time, but we don't believe in those things anymore, right? Again, we're going to have to take another look because we're dealing with powers and principalities.
Yeah, and I mean 9/11 is another big one, right?
Oh,
And
yeah. Loaded with it.
And what you are so brilliantly point out with 9/11 is how it seems like more and more that it was a direct energy weapon that was used, and that of course plays into the chemtrails and the whole weapon systems. And then it was funny. I posted a post that was all about perspective. Someone posted, imagine being born in 1900, going through World War I, going through Spanish flu, then going to the Great Depression, then going all of a sudden into Nazi and World War II, and how imagine, now look where we are, where kids are complaining that their internet's down so they can't order on Amazon. Ha ha ha. But also, if you pull back on perspective, look at what we've been going through, which is the technocratic slavery system. So we go back to, the 1986 vaccination act that opened up, direct poisoning to all babies coming into this realm. Then you go to 9/11. Then you go to, for me, the big one was Fukushima. That one was a really big one because it was kind of like the first all-out, use of that I'm aware of, use of this weapon system to cause a mass environmental impact by taking out a nuclear reactor to poison our oceans with nuclear waste. To me, that was like a massive thing. And now we're at COVID-19. So in the same way, what's more insipid than the all-out false flags of World War I, World War II, is that we're now dealing with a much more global technocratic hidden war that to me almost seems a lot worse than what people were going through back then.
Oh, it's a completely different kind of warfare. You're absolutely right. And what one can find, I think it's in that other book, but I talk about it in this book in a different way. In the 90s, the military went through a revolution. It's called the Revolution in Military Affairs, RMA. And RMA was primarily run by Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino, who is the high priest of the Temple of Set, a true practicing Satanist. And he became tremendously powerful through his psyops that he had done in Vietnam. He was involved in the terrible, terrible Cambodian secret war going on. And we had Michael Aquino for 30 years in the American military. And he wrote the essay that everybody should read, Mind Wars. It's a military essay in which he says that unless we turn more to psyops, and what by psyops he means satanic psyops, unless we turn to psyops, we will not vanquish our enemies anymore. They will overcome us. It's sort of like MK Ultra was sold to Congress by saying that the Koreans had brainwashed people during the Korean War. It's the same kind of tactic. But that revolution in military affairs was a very big deal. It brought in asymmetric warfare, which is what you're seeing now. It erased the line between civilian and soldier. It erased all kinds of lines of decorum, believe it or not, in warfare. All those are gone. Those are all gone. Just do whatever you damn well want or need to do, and in order to win. So yeah, this is all against the citizenry, and the other was too. But it was sort of disguised as a good cause. And people believed that for a long time. I think Vietnam finally broke us from that, oh yeah, we're saving democracy from communism. And that's still being attempted to be used, but it doesn't really work anymore because somebody's making a lot of money behind the scenes of these wars. And the secret wars, even more so. I mean, how much have the secret wars where you send out special ops to do dirty wet works, how much money has been made of that? Oh, well, tons. And it's probably been carrying the American economy for years. So yes, the war is now brought home against citizens. And I don't know quite how that's going to play out now. You can't just start rallying behind the Constitution when you have a media network like we have and this amazing space fence lockdown infrastructure of electromagnetics and nanoparticles and chemicals. You can't just go back to the Constitution as though everything's going to be okay. This is going to call on something else that will have to, my hope is anyway, that we're not going into a total, that we'll have to look at that and weigh how to do this, to have this kind of communication capability, but not kill ourselves while we're using it, and not allow the fat cats to really use it as a weapon against everyone who's not doing what they want. That's huge. And we haven't even begun to open that can of worms. Not at all.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like to me that the solution is first and foremost stepping out from the corporatized mainstream world. And that's what's been wonderful about this Cerveza bug for us, is it's really allowed us to push that message, which is get decentralized first and foremost. We need to decentralize all systems and take over. And we do have wonderful innovations coming. Like, I know that a lot of people in this space think blockchain is this like new way to control humanity, but it's like the wheel. It's like fire. It's just a new tool. And so depending on how it's used, it can be amazing resource for allowing us to get off centralized servers, get off centralized corporate systems.
Right, but you're talking local now. You're talking local.
I'm talking local and global.
Yeah, well, I think local you definitely are doing.
Yes.
Global is just an idea.
Yes.
Right?
Well, it has to start local.
It has to start every local.
Yes.
Every local. And
yes.
that's a big order. That's kind of like saying, all right, here's real individuality. Now everybody start following it. It doesn't make any sense because everybody's going to have to take their own path to it, right? Or not.
Well, the one thing though too is it's about awakening and first and foremost, yeah, cleaning up your own backyard, cleaning up your own soul, your own spirituality, and people are searching for that right now. And there are, with this, the funny thing is that with this technological expanse with the internet, we are able to create online communities where people can find each other from all aspects of the world, like our Telegram group, and people can support each other, and then they can go out in their little community and spread that knowledge to their neighbors and their family and friends, and then grow their own co-ops. And so, yes, we do live in a physical plane where we need to decentralize in our own little areas. And I think there's a mass evacuation out of the cities right now for people who are waking up. There is this schism right now of two polarities. Those are in the mainstream, we call normies, that are still believing in the narrative, that still watch CNN, that still go to the allopathic doctors, that still eat McDonald's. And then there's those who are completely defying all those systems. And common law is really important, status corrections. Everything we're doing, by the way, I haven't talked about this reunion summit we're putting out, is all about these solutions. We're putting out an online free summit that's talking about how to do all this, become sovereign. And so that's really important because that's going to allow us to at least start rolling the ball forward out of their systems. And the big thing, Elana, and I know you know this from Catherine Austin Fitts and what she talks about, is the economic side, getting out of fiat, getting out of the debt system, because that's what's allowed them to pay for all this, and all their lackeys, all the order followers, to have that debt system, which is just making money, printing money out of nothing, allowing them to fund with the secret trillions of dollars all of these operations. If we cut that from the source by going with our own commerce, whether that be Bitcoin or our own cryptos or gold or whatever you guys want to do, but we make our own currencies, we get sovereign. And that has to be decentralized so that we can share information and have commerce and have communication that isn't being disrupted, that isn't being censored, that isn't being controlled. So we're seeing it all come to a head right now because we see the Facebooks of the world that are all CIA controlled and operated, that are controlling with their fact checkers, all the information. And it's amazing because they're their own worst enemy. And that's something Bear and I have been wondering about. It's like with this vaccine thing, it's kind of against their typical strategy, which is the slow pot boiling, the frog boiling in the pot, slow incrementation of the slavery system. Why are they pushing so hard the vaccine thing right now? And the only thing that makes sense to me is December 21st, the Great Awakening, everything that's happening. They're trying to disconnect as many people from their etheric bodies, from their source, because they know their time is running short now.
Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, just as long as you guys who are younger remember that this was exactly how the 60s generation was thinking. Exactly. We're going back to the land. We're cutting all the ties to the establishment. And then what happened to us? Well, they hit us. They hit us so big that
the Timothy Leary drug CIA operation. That's the thing, though, is the one thing that this generation has now is we have the internet. So we have the ability to spread information quickly. Of course, they are trying everything in their power to stop that by controlling the Facebooks, by controlling the social systems. However, we have crypto nerds and people that are in the underground working on creating systems that are completely decentralized, where we're running our own networks and then we're able to spread the information. So maybe that was the beta test. The 60s were the beta test. Our souls were testing it out. It didn't work out. It wasn't the time. And even Steiner said, this is the time, right? He mentioned like right around 2018, 2019 was when it was going to be kicking in. So you get to be here to witness it. And I'm an eternal optimist. And I really believe everything's lining up right now for this great awakening and this great change. So it's really exciting, and we're being literally pushed into it. So
just as long as you know that it's not just physical. It's not just physical. It's the inner life. The inner life that maybe I'm wrong, and my life has been for naught. But I perceive that my efforts, and this is what drives me, my efforts, if I retain that integrity of the warrior, and I definitely have integrity now. I didn't when I was younger. I was very damaged and wounded, like many Americans are. And I was able to find my way through that and fix myself and get ready for why I really came. If I retain that integrity, then the spiritual world approaches. Because see, the spiritual world, a lot of people say, oh, that's nonsense because, why don't they, how could they allow all this? How could they allow all this stuff to go on? The spiritual world is a great respecter of human choice because that helps us build free will. And we are the free will beings. So they will draw near if you have a certain intention of integrity. And then you get some real juice. And I know you guys have seen it. I know you have in your own lives. You're at your wit's end and you've taken something as far as you can and it just looks like it's going to all collapse. And then, whew, here comes something. And that's kind of how I look at it is I fight so hard with I have no fantasies of winning. I don't sit around and think about what it's going to look like if I win. It's not a matter of winning for me. I'm older now, and it's a matter of just loaning my thrust to the spiritual world to do what thou wilt in the good way, not the do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law bad way. This is how I work, and everybody works differently. The reason I brought up the '60s was not to diss you or anything like that. I get tired of the ageism of young people who think that my generation failed in what we tried to do, and now they have to figure it out. That is not what happened at all. And I'm really tired of that. I don't want to hear that again. Everybody hear me? I don't want to hear that again.
I don't blame you.
Thank you,
yeah,
Elana.
And Bear will
Elana,
I'll echo that. Go ahead, Bear.
now, as a contemporary, Elana, thank you for saying that. I'm tired of being disrespected because we're the failure generation. No, not at all. And I think your points about we were from a generation, it was very idealistic. We're going to change the world and everything. And in some ways, maybe we did. But I look around now at other contemporaries, and most of them just turned into yuppies and went to sleep. But there are, certain segments of us that are still alive and fighting. So,
exactly.
I think also, what Michael's saying, I have my own little take of it. I do believe in the decentralization and all that sort of thing, because it does imply individuality at the same time.
Yeah.
But it really boils down to our intent. I don't have my own farm here and live on the land off grid because I'm afraid to run out of food. That has nothing to do with it. The reason why I'm here is because I enjoy it. It connects me to the land. And with that connection, I can connect to spirit. So I see in part of the movement, not everybody, but everybody's into prepping now. And we talk about spirituality and all those good things, but it's separate. We're still fragmented. And so I think when we get to the point where everything we do, whether you're talking about cryptos or farming or alternative medicine, like medicine, a lot of people over the years and to this day come to me because they want to hedge their bet. They're afraid to die or to be sick, rather than understanding medicine as a vehicle to connect with spirit. So I think when we just flip that in our mind and understand, and these days the technologies we use, also understand that thoughts are consequences and everything runs downhill from that. And, we're talking about entities too. Well, we all create our own little entourage of entities. They're not just from, external sources. Disease is an entity.
Yeah.
It's an energy field that we have to be able to sit back and someday just see it as an overlay and then, take care of it on that level, than think that we're going to cure it with an herb or doing it, from reverse engineering from the ground. So yeah, it boils down to why are we doing things in the first place? And I agree 100% with you that it's all about spirit. And so maybe now's the time to put the two worlds together. And of course, many sources, including even in the Bible, they talked about this being the end time. And at the end time, there would be no secrets, no men for their actions. I like to call it the Klingon phenomena. When the monster is about to, to shoot, they have to materialize themselves. They come into full view. And I think that's what we're seeing now.
Yes, I think that's
everything's out
good.
in the open. Some people still can't see it, even though it's in our face. But, that's maybe not a bad thing either, because it's all a matter of timing and it's not everybody's time right now.
Exactly. It's a process. It's a process.
Mhm.
It's not a product. And that's kind of how I always saw the 60s, was when people would sit around and talk about the ideals. I definitely knew that we were right, that the establishment would come down someday. And I think we're witnessing that now. But it may not be as we thought it was. It may be a little different. And that's something that, I think that the inner life is the thing that keeps us on the straight and narrow of of being able to see properly, not just with our ideals, which I still have them. I mean, I'm 73. I have my ideals, and they're the same as they were back then. They're just better developed now. And I'm stronger because I'm wiser and older, etc. But I think that the American suffers from, in my opinion, I was raised as a Romanian little girl. Remember, I was raised as an Eastern European until I was about nine years old, I would say. And the American, it feels they have to do something, to do it. And yes, we all need to do something. But if we don't have the other part, that interior part of intention, and intention is the right word. Steiner has a chart where I can't direct you to where to find it, but I have it on my wall, where you start at the wish. And then there's the wish, then it goes to the desire, then it goes to something else, something else, something else. And the seventh one is the intent. So there's a maturation process where you say, gosh, I wish things were better. And I wish everybody loved each other, and these wonderful wishes. But it's a long haul to get to where you have intent. And as Castaneda said in his books, whoever wrote those books, that the intent is the power. That's the power. And boy, do I know that one, because I now have real intent. And that real intent can really draw things and hopefully keep me somewhat safe. I absolutely support what you're doing there in that California-Oregon border. I have friends who run the American Eurythmy School down in Mount Shasta. They're actually in Weed, a few miles up the road. And they have money, and they have means, and they have idealism, and they have lots of people that they're training, young people, 30 some students per year. And they have a beautiful farm. I mean, it's just amazing to see. And then they have property in Oregon that they're developing now. And they're very inclusive communities. They are not like me out in the world. In fact, they usually call me when they want to find something out about the world, which I find really bizarre. But I love what they do. They create beautiful intent. the intentional community is what they have done. And I lived in 5 communes, and we all wanted this intentional community, but we had too many chiefs and not enough Indians to be totally unpolitically correct. And we just could not get that together because we all had different ideas, and we would end up in, there'd be love affairs, and then they'd break up, and then things would fall apart. And, it was very messy and very childlike as we left the middle class strictures and the establishment, growing our own food, doing, whatever, and yet had this chaos that we had not worked out and that we had to work out together. So we never got to the point, but whereas with my friends who are running the American Eurythmy School, they have the same philosophy. They don't have to argue over that. Rudolf Steiner. And so everyone's working on Steiner, and those who find that too constrictive, they leave. And that sounds great. My job is the people, not inclusive community, I've discovered. My job is to be, I'm living now in an adult, aging adult, low income federal housing because I've never lived in anything like that. So I moved here to find out what it was like, because I want to know. I want the experience of the people. And I'm willing to put up with, this, that, and the other, but I have to be able to write. That Brooks no nonsense. And if I'm not comfortable in a place, if I don't have privacy, if it's too noisy, etc. So, we all have our job to do here. And I am in 110% support of your job. And I appreciate your respect for mine. Because writing these books is not about changing anything now. I'm writing these books for 50 years down the road when they're finally going to look at what happened to us here. And
many of us are appreciating. Sorry, I was just saying many of us are appreciating your work right now. So, if we could, sorry, go ahead, finish.
Hey, Bear, you're really low right now. Is there any way you could either talk right in the mic?
How are we right now? Are you okay?
That's better. Yeah.
Okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you, sorry for interrupting, but finish your thoughts. But then after that, if we could segue maybe back into some of the things going on in the atmosphere and perhaps what part CERN plays in that, and step back a little bigger picture as far as what's going on.
Sure, we can do that. No, I was pretty much finished, and we've gotten into some interesting places. It's hard when we're also interested in everything that's going on, not just the atmosphere.
Can I just say though, Elana, that I just from a perspective, and I'm actually in my 40s, but from kids that I hang out with in their 20s, because there has been this like kind of neo hippie revolution, or like going to these consciousness festivals as a DJ and doing this. It's like you guys were the pioneers. You guys were the ones that were showing the way. And I tell you, it's like really hip to be a hippie, and it is. And people are looking towards that time. You set that in the Akashic record, that energy that is now bubbling back up, that people are looking towards.
That's great.
And there's a lot of amazing documentaries. Like some of our favorite stuff we talk about in our Telegram group are all these 60s documentaries of Back to the Land movement, the LSD stuff, like that we've talked about, the documentaries about the guys that wanted to, wake up the world by creating what was the LSD, the original batch. There was like these surfer renegades in California, and like there's so much amazing storylines. And sure, people mess up. We're humans. Things go awry because that's what happens.
Messed up.
CIA, but being a pioneer, that's what's going to happen. And now you're going to be here to see it, to kind of coalesce back into a new movement. And you are now someone that we look up to as an elder for information. As you're saying, your friends go to you to find out ideas. And that's, so you've served a massive purpose. And I like to think that actually your books, if we do our job,
Mhm.
It won't be 50 years down the line. Like, people need to be reading this right now
No,
because
I
it's
know.
so important.
I
So
really, I
anyways,
thank you so much. And I absolutely agree with you. I happen to live in a lockdown state in which the BLM has made a huge ingress. And that is why I
well, we
get
saw
a
though
lot of
last
flack.
we saw last weekend though in your town there were some skirmishes. Did you see those videos?
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there are patriots out there that were standing up and saying, no more, no more. We need to have some common sense. We need to get out of the court. So BLM, yes, of course, Black Lives Matter. Of course, and all lives matter, etc. But yes, Black lives extremely matter, but that's a corporate brand.
It's a
That is a
corporate brand.
corporate brand that has a specific CIA created indoctrination program to keep people compartmentalized into a mindset of their own slavery.
Yeah.
And when you have individuals that we have to get back to being individuals thinking for ourselves. And the one thing that you talk about that's amazing is compartmentalization.
Mhm.
And that is one of their biggest ploys. And we are all compartmentalized now. Our life is compartmentalized. We don't know where our food comes from. That's compartmentalized. Our medicine compartmentalized.
Yeah.
When we put our trash out, where does that go? We're so disconnected from the systems that everything is, and it's all about being the modern man and everything just being easy to access, and it's the greatest time ever. But no, we've been compartmentalized to death to where we are so disconnected from reality that it's so easy to mind control the population with something like a Black Lives Matter. And I know you're kind of in the heart of it there in Olympia.
I sure am. And everything you just mentioned, by the way, was the curtailing of our relationship with nature, the trash, the food, all of it. It's all, you're cut off. You don't know anymore about nature. So yeah, okay. So back to the atmosphere. Yes. The one thing that I think is key for you to know, and you won't see as much of it in that book as you will in the book I'm writing now, and that is the nanoparticles. The nanoparticles are really, really crucial because most of them are nanobots. The primary number, I would say the most nanobots that are being dropped in the stratosphere are nanosensors. Those are called MEMS, MEMS, GEMS, GEMS, and NEMS, NEMS. I love those acronyms in the military, I tell you. So these sensors, we breathe them in. They find their way from the lungs into the bloodstream. Then they find their way in through the blood-brain barrier. And then they send data back to what I call the laptop boys. And that data goes into the big data pool and goes into the machine learning of the big AIs. Okay, so these sensors can also be, if indeed they are sensors, some of them are just nanobots, just tiny computers, tiny computers that are receiving instructions remotely and are prepared to do the work. And where you can really get a real picture of what I'm talking about, because these nanos, it isn't just their size. A nano is 1/1000th of a meter, very, very tiny. It's that they are using the nano size to construct atom by atom by atom by atom next to each other, all these different building materials. So basically, right now with biology, engineers are taking over biology, and there will be no molecular biology anymore. It will be digital biology, and it will be a matter of construction by the nanobots. So this is the problem. We're accustomed to parasites. We're accustomed to flora and fauna living symbiotically with us in our intestinal tract. We're accustomed to, having worms, having various fungi, and now it's machines, little tiny machines. And they are capable of being programmed remotely. Their instruction as creatures is basically wait until you're directed to do something. So they can cause, well, everything, heart attacks. It's a lot more than just cancer. Brain aneurysms, all the things that seem natural, like natural deaths, like a stroke. You don't die, but nanos could be used for that. They would then, they have their various programmings and they would go and do this, that, and the other. Where you can really see what I'm talking about, this swarm consciousness they have, and they do have a consciousness. That's the key. They're machines, but they're AI machines of their own ilk. And it appears to be due to their size. In other words, what I'm finding in the papers and patents and all the stuff I read is that because they're so tiny, they're right up at that quantum threshold. So what the quantum threshold means to me, and I'm very interested in quantum physics and, try to educate myself as best I can. But the quantum realms, that's where you get into the different dimensions. As you know, the universe is just loaded with dimensions of consciousness. That's really what the universe is just a giant consciousness. And these dimensions have various entities in them, of course, that are maybe more comfortable in those dimensions, or have different bodies and have different types of perceptions and all that, communications. And that's kind of what it means. So when I saw the footage from the Santa Rosa, California fire quite a while ago, I was watching the footage. It was a drone footage, very good. And I was watching the embers on the ground. It looked like they were blowing, right? But when I really looked more closely and ran it back again and again and again, watching it, I could see that it was more like a phalanx of soldiers weaving their way through a path of one house being on fire, another house not being on fire, a tree burning from the inside, and then another tree not touched. And I realized that I was looking at nanos. I was looking at someone directing the nanobots through the fire and carrying their fire with them. They were like the firemen in Fahrenheit 451, the firemen who start fires. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah. And I was in touch with Jamie Lee then, who did, I think, 100 videos on the California fires. I mean, Jamie does great work. He's a videographer, and he had told me
his channel is Plain Truth.
Yeah,
but it's been taken. He's gone like Plain Truth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right, and I think the videos that you would see for the California fires, the ones I like, are Paradise Lost 1 through Paradise Lost 100. I think it is.
Very familiar.
The one I recommend is that you see Paradise 51. Because in that he interviews an anonymous scientist who wants to retain it. And I did talk to this guy, so I do know he exists, and I picked his brain a little more on the phone. But he's very wary of his life, and he would like to have a few years left. So he talks about the nanos, and that's what they do. They swarm. Their consciousness exists not in singularities, but in swarms. So this is what we have in us, and they can swarm in any way they're told to swarm. So that's what, to me, the chemicals coming down, I would assume that now with this COVID thing, I would assume that we are being vaccinated with some additional chemicals coming down. Here in the Northwest, I just live in a constant haze. And when it rains, it's a very mild rain. Well, generally, sometimes there'll be a spurt, just big bunch, and then boom, it's over, kind of like in London. But often it's a very thin rain, but penetrable. And I often wonder what's in it. I don't suffer, and I don't know how other people are suffering or if they are suffering. I'm pretty isolated right now because I'm writing so much and have to stay on the track. But I do wonder about that. If see, the problem with that is the vaccination. To me, it would be more like they are dropping parts that they're going to need that we breathe in that would further the nanotechnology in us. As far as the trigger, it's kind of like the trigger in the California fires was not a nano, it was a laser, or maybe it was a LiDAR. It could have been LiDAR as well. But anyway, we saw the blue beam coming from the sky. That was the trigger. That didn't do the fire. That just triggered and got the nanobots going and got everything moving. So we have to keep our eye on this because an aerosol delivery system is exceedingly fruitful and valued greatly by those who are running these programs. So that's, to me, the main thing to say about the atmosphere. You know it's electromagnetic all the time, and that's a piece of cake. You can use a radar installation. You can use the satellites and the lasers on the satellites. There's a lot of ways to triangulate. They have a system of destruction called interferometry, and they can cross beams over the target area and really hit it. And right now, what I'm watching, because of the great work by one of our activists named Rick Duart at Weather Warfare, Rick is documenting amazing flood action going on all over the world right now. The problem is the wrong finger is on the geoengineering buttons. And I have watched Trump for, all this time. At first, I wondered if he even knew what was going on with the geoengineering. I don't think he did. But how do you get the right finger on the button? Because the one good thing that has happened is this is the first 4 years of a president I recall in my lifetime where there has not been a war. And so some things are going well, but this one still remains to be seen because I feel it's being used as a way to just crash the world everywhere possible, while Americans are distracted by the election thing and whatever else they can throw at us. So that's kind of the way I was thinking of going, Bear. Did you want me to go in another direction?
No, that's good. While you brought it up, though, has your research brought you much into Trump himself? You know, he has some interesting ties with, I think, the Kennedy clan. Also, he had a friendship with Nixon. His uncle Fred, his connection with MIT, and allegedly he's the one that
John
recovered.
John Trump.
Oh, John, is it? Sorry, yeah, John.
He recovered
and he allegedly
stuff.
Yeah, and he recovered a lot of the Tesla. So what have you found out in that area?
What I know, because I'm familiar with it, is that for the past year, I've been watching, longer than that. It seemed to me that since the war that is going on now, the Civil War we're involved in, that he's following Sun Tzu's Art of War. And that's a very short book. I read it when I ghostwrite books for people for money. And I did a CEO's book years ago. And I read The Art of War 3 times. It's a very short book, but it's that usual Asian subtle, right? You have to really feel your way into it. And I see that Trump uses it all the time, or the Trump team. I call it the Trump team because it certainly isn't just this one guy. And what that means is there are times when he'll say something and you'll go, oh, I can't believe he just said that. And then you see what happens. And what it really was a way to draw the enemy out. And then something usually happens to them because they think that he doesn't know, or they think he's sick, or they think he's whatever. But you can see, I think you'd have to be blind to not see how deeply hated he is by the deep state. And that in itself was enough for me to take another look. Because that depth of hatred and who he saved us from spoke volumes to me. So I have taken several looks, and sometimes, like, he'll say he's pro-vaccination, and right now he's setting up, whatever that's called, operation, whatever it's called, and then another time he'll be for more of something awful. I go with Coleridge's willing suspension of disbelief, and retain my faith that whatever is up, the divine world is also involved. And I'm very glad I'm not on those front lines that he is on. I'm on a sort of separate front line, I feel. And The Art of War. Everybody should read it, so you know what's going on, because this is the first president we've had in my lifetime, to my knowledge, that has had zero access to any mainstream media. I mean, zero, less than zero. They beat him up at every opportunity. So I'm hopeful, and if we don't make this cut, then America deserves everything it gets, because I have tried to wake people up my entire lifetime, and people have just slept in their self-satisfaction and their personal careers, and all the things that under good leadership you could have the liberty to do, but we didn't have good leadership. I couldn't even look at the previous president, much less listen to anything he said. I would feel ill in my stomach, and I have a very strong stomach. So I knew I was encountering some level of evil in this person that I saw no reason to really listen to him, because the cabal was still in control.
And it's been a long-standing succession of people from that cabal. You have the Bushes, you have the Clintons, you have the Obamas. It's
all bipartisan, all across the aisle.
Yeah. I had my doubts initially with the current president, but as you pointed out, it doesn't seem like it's just pure theater, that they really don't like the guy.
Oh.
And then you have the kind of the ever Trumpers that, right or wrong, no matter what, he's playing 5D chess. And I'm starting to think that possibly he really is.
Yeah, the 5D chess would be the Sun Tzu.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah,
and he
exactly.
even he said in 2 or 3 interviews that they've asked him what his favorite book is, and it's The Art of War.
Mm-hmm.
Did I need to be?
I also believe his rhetoric about the vaccines, he's really talking about something else.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Yes. And remember, the very first thing he did, you probably don't remember, but I am a big proponent of, I have a friend in London who is one of the leading edge activists against pedophiles, especially the ones in government there. And I follow that assiduously. I'm the survivor of incest myself, so I'm very interested in what happens to children. And I discovered that the very first thing he did was to lock down the funds of anyone found to be involved in human trafficking. Can't take it out of the US. Can't take it out. And I said, this guy is going to do something for children.
Yeah.
And I've sent some of the things, mostly it's on a rumor mill basis at this point, because he has no access to mainstream media. And who would believe him anyway? No one. They would make fun of him. One of the greatest things he's done is the rescue of thousands of children from these underground bases.
Well,
And
it is interesting though, because even just it would like what I noticed as soon as 2016, 2017, I'd go to airports and I saw this stop human trafficking literature everywhere. And it was
yes,
like, so there was definitely that was to the forefront, whether or not
yes,
people want to believe in the underground secret lairs of kids being tortured, no matter what policy was implemented moving
exactly.
forward to as this was a major issue. That, and we know there are even the mainstream media had to come out with multiple reports of arrests and raids of places where kids were being held. I mean, on mainstream media, this was
Once in
reported.
a while, but not at all anything about the big.
Correct.
I
But my
mean,
point is that's how big it's been, is that even mainstream media has had to put out, they couldn't keep it all in wraps.
they couldn't negate it all. Yes. And that is huge. And that was what drew my attention to him first, was like, that was an EO I could believe in. I was like, oh yeah, he's going to go after these guys. Because every president except Jimmy Carter, and I don't know about him, but every other president we've had since Kennedy's assassination is a pedophile, has been a pedophile. And I have proof. So, I'm kind of on a warpath regarding that, because there are so many MK Ultra survivors I know who their greatest sadness is no one ever goes to bat for children. And they were those children. So, that's something that, and when I realized that they were running an entire industry on not just child trafficking, but on adrenochrome, in providing adrenochrome to Hollywood stars and other large personalities. And I know how adrenochrome has to be made in order to give the life-giving power that gave a lot of these starlets and stars their youth beyond the time when it should have been vanishing. So, to me, that won my heart right off the bat. And then since then, I've followed all the EOs. I keep track of them. Most Americans don't understand how the executive order works. And, it's a Federal Register thing, and it goes into law without Congress at all, because he has been stopped by the House and in the Senate. I mean, he has been stopped everywhere they can stop him, everywhere. So he has turned to these other ways to govern. And a lot of people blame the government. I think one of the major misunderstandings is that we even have a government running anything right now. I mean, talk about running on automatic. It's unbelievable, because it's not really governance going on. It's a takeover attempt with a sneaky defense that doesn't want to be seen and is using this COVID thing as a cover-up as well. So it's a very fascinating. I mean, can you imagine how many books are going to be written on this period in the future?
I mean, it's a riddle wrapped in an enigma. And the one other theory is I'm completely distanced from the whole presidential thing, knowing especially how everything's corporatized and we're not even in a republic, and you can go down all those channels. So, but the idea of the Pied Piper theory, which is that Trump was actually put in to be the Pied Piper, to keep the right and keep patriots seeing this hope, the Q movement and all that, while we still have the draconian measures coming in, we still have the vaccines. Well, we don't know. We don't, like we were saying, we don't know yet because the cards haven't been totally unfolded. So
right.
I tell people, trust your intuition, stay grounded. Don't get too caught up in the drama of what we see right now.
Well, the emotionalism.
Yeah.
I mean, forget it. And here I have to put in a warning. I don't own a cell phone because it's a weapon system. I don't own a television. It's a weapon system. The only weapon system I own is this computer that you see me talking on here, this little laptop of mine. So beware of, if you insist upon owning an iPhone, you are being pulsed night and day with frequencies to impact your behavior, your thoughts, and your emotions. Take it from the horse's mouth. I know this. And you must not fall prey to emotionalism. You must deal with that on your own, away from your cell phone. If I were you at night, you've got to protect your sleep. Don't sleep on beds with metal in them. You will be hit. It is so thick now. The geoengineering that is controlled by the wrong finger is just, and the satellites that are up there are just pelting us with frequencies. So do what you can to ameliorate that. But if you find yourself going into emotionalism over just someone bringing up the T word, just that alone, realize you are being pulsed, and that is total mind control, and you'd better do something about it and get hold of yourself.
We had a guest on not too long ago who was a physicist, and he did a lot of experimenting with the phones and took the battery out, took everything out, disconnected, turned the Wi-Fi off, and then he still was detecting the pulsing coming out. You can't get rid of that thing.
No, we're swimming in it.
You'll appreciate this, Elana, though. I'm part of a group that is the smartphone Operation Smartphone Emancipation.
Oh, great.
And there's a movement of people rejecting the centralized smartphone companies and going back. I'm actually looking to go back to a BlackBerry for now. And because I still need it for my emails and stuff while I'm on the run, because that's helping my activism. That's helping run the company. Like, I need to be in tap with that. But there is like a pretty big movement of people understanding, like, whoa, and a lot of it's just like being captured emotionally and spiritually by all the apps on there, your attention, right? It's constantly taking you out of the natural world, because you're like, what? I need that endorphin, rush from likes and follows and what's going on. And but there is like, that's back to the hit 60s hippies back, and now we have our own, it's, so there are these awakenings and these things, really cool things happening. And personally, this is the spiritual side you're talking about, and what we talk about all the time is, I really feel like if we do our job right, we will move to a place where we can be psychic again. We can be connected psychically. We can be going out of body, meeting and doing stuff, and doing commerce in the astral realm or whatever. And we can then see the nanobots. We can control them like the Matrix. We can get rid of them. We can become the true warriors we need to be through our own spiritual tapping in that Steiner talks about. And then it's all becomes like the Matrix, like Neo, and just.
Whoa, you're way ahead of me. You're way ahead of me.
And as long as we don't fall into the glamour of thinking we're above it when we aren't, and we certainly have those potentials, but we have to be grounded at the same time.
Yeah, and the out of body thing is a little scary to me, but I realize that's right. At night when I sleep, I know I go out of body, and I am in. Interestingly, for months now, maybe it's because I'm writing and in the heat of the moment, the heat of creative thing. I am in schools all night long. And I wake up, I have teachers. I'm teaching some of the classes. Sometimes I'm living in communes. It's always a group, always a big group of people. And I don't know any of them. I don't know any of them in my real life. But obviously, I'm out of body and busy. But yeah, otherwise, I pretty much want to sort of, maybe because I'm female, I want to be really in touch with nature. Not that I go for walks in nature or that much. It's not about that. It's not about worshiping nature. It's about that grounding. That grounding is a good word of really staying here now. Ram Dass, I heard him loud and clear, be here now. So I am a big proponent of be here now, and of just doing the job before me. And I don't spend a lot of time in fantasy or projecting into the future. I find that it weakens me. I need to simply stay with the task at hand, because I really do feel I'm on a battlefield, and I am a bit, I am targeted to a degree. So that's another thing that one has to be careful of. And that's what I meant for people who are not activist leaders or something, that beware of your cell phone, because it will be used against you. It is a weapon system, and you're going to have to figure out, if you need it, okay, you're going to have to figure out how to live with it. And you should treat it like a weapon, like a gun, that you either have. Are you going to have it by your bed? Are you going to, you can't turn them off anymore. You're going to keep it in your car at night, outside your house. That wouldn't be a bad idea. What's that?
A Faraday bag.
Oh, a Faraday bag. Does it work?
And we sell these on our website. And
right.
we also
Okay.
sell grounding bags with Tesla rocks in them to put under your bed if you have a metal frame, put in your bathroom along your pipes to help ground the EMF and stuff. So we're all about solutions and giving our community different tools in their tool belt to help protect themselves and navigate these times.
And you've tested all of them.
Yeah, Bearlando has tested them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, send me that link then. Okay. And I'll put it up on my Facebook sites, my evil Facebook sites.
Well, hey, Elana, this has been an amazing conversation. I feel like we could talk for about 16 hours. There is just so much content to get into. 9/11, we could talk about for about 8 hours, right? And the work you did there, uncovering so much of that. And that's like Kennedy 2.0. I say, that was like the next big false flag that really.
Oh, very big. Apart. Yeah.
Yeah. But now I would say the next one now has been this Cerveza bug hoax, the COVID.
Yes.
Has been the next plan. So it's incremental.
Yeah. And they're all in, as I recall, they're all in 19 year, not the 2011 Fukushima. Fukushima was not the 19 year, but it has been 19 years since 2001. And again, we're in ritual land, because 19 years is a moon node and a metonic cycle, it's known as. And they're right on. I knew they would do something at the 19-year mark since that, and now it's this. So watch those rhythms, those planetary rhythms. They're definitely using them, and I could prove. I have lots of that stuff in my Sub Rosa America. I used to sit around and doodle numbers just to figure out how they had been set up, these events. No, you guys are just way too much fun, I tell you. Now I'm going to have to make myself go back to reading my notes and doing what I do all the time.
Oh, wonderful!
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And just one quick comment, about the years. A lot of people get into numerology and that sort of thing, and there's this whole occult thing about certain dates, but numbers actually have a resonance. So there's another level of reality as far as why certain numbers and dates are used. They have a physical resonance, and we measure that sort of thing these days.
Yeah, and the planet has time resonances. Yeah, that's why they use these marked dates. Okay.
Wonderful. Well, hey, Elana, thanks so much. Everybody, thanks for joining us on the chat. It was a lively chat, to say the least. A lot of things I wanted to bring up from the chat, but we didn't have time. So I'm sorry, guys, if I didn't get to your questions. But join us in Telegram and drop them in there, and we will have a lively discussion there. If you did enjoy this conversation, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe, share with your friends. We need to get this information out to as many people as possible. We need the mass awakening now. And so much going on. We have our reunion summit launching in a couple weeks. That will be the initial registration, where we'll be talking about all these topics, and it's solutions based. So it's about changing your status, getting off the corporate system, embracing your sovereignty, learning how to grow food better, learning about health. The germs don't make you sick. All these important things, so that you're empowered to have the tools to further your spiritual evolution and get off the wheel and start moving down towards the path towards sovereignty. So just check us out at alphavedic.com. Elana, thank you so much. And what's the best way for people to follow you? And I'll put those in the show notes as well.
Yeah, I have the ilanafreeland.com blog site that my webmistress keeps up wonderfully. And then I have 2 Facebook private sites, because I've lost control of my Elana Freeland Facebook site. The 2 sites are Elana Freeland Under an Ionized Sky and Elana Freeland Sub Rosa America. And they have different subjects, needless to say. So those are how you can, there's an email available for me at the ilanafreeland.com site. It's a Proton Mail site.
Wonderful. Please, everybody, if you aren't already, go follow Elana and engage with her community. I have a feeling you're going to learn a lot more. Buy her books, alphavedic.com/book list. Amazing reads. Let's support Elana. And thank you so much again. Everybody, have a beautiful day. Get outside, get your feet in the soil, go ground, go plant something, go for a hike. Mother Nature is the best. Everything. Really. So thanks again, guys, and have a beautiful day.